Welcome into another episode of Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, and we're going to talk Florida State recruiting today. And we're going to talk about the 24 class, the 25 class, and all the things in between. Let's go.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into another episode of Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith. In today's episode, we're going to break down the 2024 recruiting class, why, as a Florida State fan, you should be excited about it, what could also happen before signing day in conjunction with the transfer portal and trying to balance the two. Believe me, that's not easy. And then finally, a little bit of information about 2025. Mixed in with all of that, happy to take your questions and all their comments, kind of get into all the things that go along with Florida State. Obviously, there are other topics out there as well. Not trying to get in too far with all the discussion about the playoff for next season, etc. But I will entertain some of those as well. If you want to hit the chat, I'll get to that here in just a second. First off, today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege, and get $20 off your first purchase. All right. I'm going to kind of run down some things here, and we're going to get into the comments in a little bit. If you have questions, fire away. I'll get to them as quick as I can, but I do want to kind of go over. I've got a whole bunch of stuff on my sheet. This is not a short list, but it's a big recruiting class, right? So let's talk Florida State's 24 class from top to bottom, but a couple of key points that everybody asks about, so I'm going to get it out of the way. Briefly mentioned this on yesterday's show. You can check it out if you like on YouTube, on Spotify, etc. KJ Bolden and Jeremiah Smith. Those are the two names I get asked about the most. Both those guys, really, really good football players. I think Jeremiah is the best player in the country. KJ is committed to the Noles. He is a tremendous football player from Buford. He's a safety. Jeremiah is a receiver. Bolden is still talking to Auburn, pretty hot and heavy. Even though he's committed to Florida State, I have no idea what he's going to do. But if he's talking to Auburn, like he had a visit there, I would assume that he's seriously considering going there. That would be a huge loss to Florida State's class, but that's the reality. I'm just telling you for the record, that's what I've heard. I spoke to somebody yesterday before I had heard about that, and we both agreed that he'd been real quiet about his recruitment. And that doesn't necessarily mean anything specific, but it does mean one thing, and that's Florida State's got to be on their P's and Q's. If you're going to go after guys like that, and you have to if you want to be on a national championship level, you're going to expect some visits and some backdoor stuff at the end. That's just recruiting in the Deep South. Florida State knows that's been going on for 50 years. That's not going to change. How it ends, I don't know. I haven't spoken to KJ in a long time. I may run into him at the Georgia State finals. I don't know if he's going. I'm going to be there, be in the stadium, but he didn't. His team, Buford, got upset, so I doubt that he's over there. The point is still the same. Florida State is the leader until otherwise proven. He is committed to Florida State. I don't know what the in-home schedule is for Norvell and the staff, but that'll come out pretty quick soon afterwards because somebody will tweet a picture or whatever. That's fine. Florida State may want to hold off Norvell going in-home or one of the other key assistants that he gets along with a little bit later. With that being said, there's an interesting question. There will be a 12-team playoff next year. Could the debacle hurt our recruiting? Nah, not really, man. Gary Roach asks if the playoff situation this year is going to hurt recruiting. No, not really. Florida State knows they're on the cusp of what they need. Next year may not be as good because quarterback's a little iffy, but I'm going to leave this question up there, but we're all good. Back to the KJ situation. We're not going to be in a just follow KJ all the way through kind of deal because that'll kind of come out. He is a 5-star by pretty much every publication there is. And to be honest with you, on and off the field, he's just a great dude. So I wish him the best no matter where he signs. But it looks like it's Florida State or Auburn. The team to also watch, though, is Georgia. Kirby Smart is not going to give up. It's not going to happen. Kirby does not jack around with recruiting, and he tries to get as many of the Buford kids as he can, but they've been slacking a little bit on Buford. That's like the program just outside Atlanta. that Georgia has always relied on amongst other schools. And Alabama's got their hand in there, Florida State, etc., probably ticking Kirby off. But that's recruiting, man. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. So I'm going to expect a little bit more news about KJ in the next 48 hours as we get towards the end of the week, because he's going to have other in-home visits, or at least some that are going to be on the dock. That's my guess, whether it's Georgia or Florida State. His team did just get beat recently in the playoffs, so I don't know how many he wants to have. I heard he was pretty ticked they lost. Kind of took it hard because it's the senior year he wanted to go out with the state title. I get it. Totally get it, but that didn't happen. As far as the other player, Jeremiah Smith, same thing that I heard yesterday. I haven't gotten a whole lot since. Spoke to my buddy about it, and he was with Jeremiah recently. Some of you probably know him, John Garcia. We both just expect, barring something unforeseen, Jeremiah making his quote-unquote final decision on National Signing Day. That is the 20th. Today is the 5th. So we are literally 2 weeks and 1 day from National Signing Day. I don't know if I will be down at Chaminade then or not. I've been down that way so many times this year. I don't know if I can handle another drive down there, but I might go. It's Florida State, Ohio State, Miami. Miami had an in-home. Florida State is tried, and they've got to visit this weekend or what. I can't remember the dates. I'm getting them all jumbled with all these players. But Florida State is right there. I was told maybe a week or so ago, Ohio State, Florida State were probably the 1-2. Development is what he's looking for. He's a little bit different than the comment that I normally make. You know, I say, like, it's not about what's on the shirt, it's the person recruiting him. Well, there's one step further with Jeremiah Smith, and that's proven development, like start to finish with the player. Like a high school kid that you bring in, he's at X level, but you get him to an NFL level. Like Ohio State's developed a lot of kids. And my only argument against that is they're starting at a pretty high bar with who they're recruiting, but they've done a great job with their passing game until like this year. They kind of really hit a snag. They didn't really impress many people, and obviously quarterback is in the portal, so I don't know what's going on with Ohio State. Maybe that impacts Jeremiah. Maybe it doesn't. I have not heard. But again, all I know is Ohio State, Florida State is the edge top two, but I think that's extremely fluid. Miami is not going to give up. They are not happy that they didn't get him in the first place, and he committed to Ohio State last December, and they have put their best foot forward forever. Florida State has too. I know Florida's tried, but that program is in such disarray. I don't think they're a factor anymore, although I'll never count out the University of Florida for an in-state kid. I mean, why would you go there? It's kind of hard to see why, but he did visit there multiple times, so the Gators are technically a possibility. Now, let's jump into what's going to happen with this class, why it's a top 5 class, in my opinion, and quite frankly, all the recruiting services. I've got some notes in general about it. And the number one thing is something I actually had a podcast on not all that long ago. Florida State's DB class is the best in the country. Just flat out. It's the best in the country. And if you don't agree with it, that's fine. But you got KJ. You got Charles Wester, who was coveted by Alabama and Florida State and Florida and everybody else under the sun. He is as long as it gets for a corner. He has to learn some technical aspects, etc., but he can get after it. He's from Venice High School, so it's good to get another kid from Florida. You also have Jamari Howard. He played at Norland this year. He is a kid that was a corner, but they moved him to safety, and he made a big jump up in production. There were times he'd struggle with some guys at corner. He's a real long kid, real tall, but that's just technical, and it's not an athletic thing. But for whatever reason, he just took to safety. Buddy of mine saw him play safety, and he was really, really good. That's the spot they think he's going to end up at the next level. I think it's a great move because he's a physical kid. Jamari Howard will come up and strike you. So that could be a great fit for him, not only at the college level, but potentially down the road after that, because you can't teach the man's length. Jamari's arms are forever. Kind of like him and Charles, ridiculous. I don't know which one's got longer arms, but it'd be a really interesting contest. The kid that doesn't get talked enough about is Ricky Knight. He played at Cardinal Newman this year after playing the year before at their rival. But this is a young man that has the ability to take on some really good play. He actually went against Jeremiah recently when they got beat by him. He had a pick in the end zone. It was a little bit of an overthrow. He beat Jeremiah to the ball. Ricky is really, really good. I don't know why he's not talked about that much, but nonetheless, that's a player that Florida State or anybody else would be happy to get. At corner, and I'm surprised he doesn't get more props. I think he could play in the slot. I think Ricky could play outside or boundary, depending on how big he gets. He needs to add weight like most kids. Excuse me. But Ricky is not a young man that is going to have a problem with the coverage and the intimidation factor going against big time guys. He's all about it. He's all about it. Sometimes it's really good, sometimes it's not. But each play he comes back for more. And as a DB, you're going to lose more than you win. It's kind of like baseball. A lot of guys don't like baseball because you're going to get out more than you're going to get a base hit. Well, he's okay with that. The final guy is somebody I've talked about on this podcast quite a few times, and that's Kai Bates. He plays at Edgewater over in Orlando, 6'2", 185 pounds. He could play anywhere in the secondary. He's a lot like Lester. He's a lot like Jamari. Very long, big kid, but he's more physically developed, stronger guy. And he's also somebody that I don't really think he cares which spot, like if it was boundary, if it was field. Just from getting to know him, pretty easygoing guy. Kai could play some safety. He's played some at Edgewater. They moved him around. I wouldn't put it out of the question, not completely at least, that Bates played some slot, depending on how a team, especially in the spread, if they constantly used a bigger receiver in the slot, like a 6'1", 210-pound guy, that might be something he would be up for. Not everybody is all about that, but he might be that guy. And to be really honest with you, if you don't have bigger corners that can play in the slot and mix and match with the teams you play, it's pretty hard to be successful. Slot receivers are getting better and better at the college level. Speaking of better and better, Game Time. This is the app that you should have already downloaded. If you don't, please do so very soon. It's very easy to do. It's simply put the easiest way to get tickets from just about anything you can imagine. Concerts, opera, sporting events. You want to go to a Florida State game, whatever it may be. Game Time. Download the Game Time app. It's easy to navigate. You can see your tickets and see the seats, like where you would be. You click on the row, it'll show you a picture. Here's an idea as well. Get somebody some tickets that you know for Christmas, or vice versa. Maybe suggest it to your girlfriend or to your wife. It's an easy way to do it, even if it's last minute. They have flash deals on all kinds of things. It could be NBA, it could be hockey, whatever it may be. This is a great opportunity. So with that being said, you have that opportunity with any with a smartphone you want. You can download the app. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem Locked On College. It's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right. Now, as we kind of cross over into this next segment, this is something that's pretty basic. Florida State, as I mentioned a minute ago, DB class is dope. It's not really questionable. I've also been told, though, and I don't know all the specifics, they could still take somebody else if there was a great player available. They're looking at things from a versatile point. And that's what this whole class is and a lot of the notes I have. I had somebody ask me the other day, who is the best player in Florida State's class in terms of versatility? And I couldn't answer. Honestly, don't know. That's a good problem, though. They have numerous guys. Let me give you an example. BJ Gibson, wide receiver out of Georgia. Really good football player, super underrated. Plays at one of the big box county schools in central Georgia, off the beaten path. Not a lot of people there, but that county, I thought of these smaller counties in central and south Georgia, they rally around the high school and everything. Girls softball, track, whatever. People, they support. He's at one of those programs too, and he's a dude. He can play DB, he can play receiver, he could probably play running back. And the Noles are recruiting him as a receiver, and I think that's the primary, but he's a kid that could play multiple spots. He would figure it out with coaching and time and get into the lineup. But that's about 10 different guys in this 24 class. So I guess, the DB class, I think you should, if you take anything away from this pod today, it's the best DB class in the country. But if for some reason a couple guys got hurt, you don't wish upon that, but down the road, you can possibly move guys. Another guy is Mekhi Danzy, the running back out of Tallahassee, Florida High, elite speed, arguably the best 400-meter runner in the state. I forget who's top, but he's like right around 46, just under. He's an elite guy. Wants to play running back, but he could be a receiver. He could be a DB. When you sign kids like this over and over and over again, sometimes they just go different directions than you think for whatever reason. Here's an example. When Bowden signed KJ Bolden, he was a quarterback. They didn't need him there right away because they had somebody. Goofing around and talking to him, they put him at receiver a little bit. He liked it a lot. The rest is history. You don't know till you get kids on campus. You just don't. So with that being said, here's another question. Von Meyer, Pat Surtain going to have dogs in the secondary? Yes, he is. I'm just going to leave that up because it couldn't say it any better. If you have questions, please ask. If you got comments, fire away, just like this one from Von Meyer Jr. It's legit. Florida State's DB class is nasty. But again, when you have this many guys that are versatile, you're going to win more games. Look at this season for Florida State. How many times did a receiver sit out? After we got to about game 3 in the 2 deep at receiver, was there a game that somebody didn't sit out? I don't think so. That's just part of football. It is a contact sport, a very, very violent and barbaric physical sport. You're going to have guys get hit. You're going to have guys that end up having to sit out. Ankle injuries, those kind of things happen, hamstrings. But then you're going to have guys break fingers, etc., get hit by a helmet, whatever. It happens. You got to have depth and you got to have versatility. With that, here are a couple of things that this was just fun. These are my own. These are nobody asked me. Best offensive player that I believe that very few people know about. And this is somebody that I knew about from last spring, and he'd committed, not surprising because his dad played for the Knowles. That's Camden Fryer. Yes, that Fryer that played on the 93 team, that's his dad. He plays at Columbia High School in Lake City up on I-10, just a little bit east of where 75 connects. Really good football player. He's bigger than what he's listed at. He's like 190 pounds, I think. He can ball. Great hands. And because of who his dad is, he has a better understanding of route concepts, using rub routes, timing, mixing up what you use to get off bump coverage from play to play to play to play. He can catch the ball, man, and it's over half of why he catches the ball is create separation. He's fast, but he's not like elite fast. It's just technique. He's ahead of the curve. Florida State did well to get him. You get guys that bleed for Florida State. And he told me, he wanted to go where he wanted to go. However, it worked out. His dad didn't really interfere, but, he would have liked him to go to Florida State. But they recruited him hard. They made him a priority, and he enjoyed his visit, Norvell and everything. When I talked to him this past spring, and this is well before I started this podcast, he made it clear that Florida State put in the effort. And I thought that was cool. Not only is he a legacy kid, they earned why they got him. Fryer, I don't know how early he'll play, but I'd find it hard to believe he didn't at least hit the field next year as special teams. You're not going to out-effort that kid. He gets after it. He played with Team Dimes out of Savannah. That's Chromahawks team, so that they've got a nice rapport as well. That's kind of helpful. Luke, obviously, is the quarterback committed to the Knowles in the 24 class. Very good football player. But having Camden Fryer as an outlet, that's a good deal. What else we got here? Carlos Allen. What players, if any, are Florida State interested in the transfer portal? I was just talking to somebody about that. It's happening so fast. There's a gazillion. I've talked about Cam Ward. RJ Oben is a guy. He's a defensive end that was at Duke. He had 5 sacks last year. The list: Auburn, Notre Dame, lots of other SEC, ACC schools. It's all over the place. That's one. But I haven't really dived deep into the deep end, if you will, on this because it just opened yesterday. Starting next week, I'll give you a little more. And there might be somebody pop for Florida State this week. It's possible. But it's not like with recruiting because you don't know who's going to get in the portal. And I don't have these kids' phone. I don't have it. It's much more Wild West than recruiting ever thought about. I don't have access to that stuff. Somebody I might have had their number from 4 years ago, but for the most part, it's really hard to say. And I don't know Oben, but he was a pretty good player at Duke. His dad, for those who don't know, he played at Louisville. third-round pick. He was on the Super Bowl team, I believe, with the Buccaneers in 2002. Heck of a football player. He's now like director of NFL development or something. He's very successful, man. Got a ring too. I mean, that's pretty successful. So his kid's probably going to be somebody you'd want in your program anyway. Norvell got FSU headed in the right direction. Yeah, I would say that is the understatement of the day right there. Insane mob with that comment. Norvell got FSU headed in the right direction. Yeah, it's amazing how far Florida State went from the end of 21 to now. I mean, they've lost 3 games out of their last 26. They're 23-3. They went 10-3. So yeah, that's right, 23-3 in their last 26 games. That's pretty good, man. Georgia's probably the only team with a better record, or Michigan, maybe Michigan at that time. I'd say you're doing pretty damn good. So a lot to be proud of if you're a Florida State fan, alum, booster, etc. While I'm thinking of it on that topic, the battle's end, I saw something about more people, and if somebody wants to chime in about the collective for FSU, because of getting the snub in the playoff, there are a bunch of people that are joining it, trying to quote unquote push the narrative for Florida State athletics. I think that's a great story. I don't know much about it. I don't know the people that operate it, but no matter what the total is, and there's numbers being thrown around, and I'm not that interested in that. But I thought that was interesting. If you're going to have a lot of different things to quote unquote improve your program, the money that goes into that, coaching, recruiting, NIL package for like a quarterback or a defensive line, RJ Oben, I don't know. You want to have options. So it's interesting for Florida State as we kind of think about this, and I'll just go into this little tangent here with NIL for a moment. They need a couple of key guys next year so they're not completely rebuilding. I talked to a buddy of mine yesterday that thought they could be anywhere from 7-5 to 10-2 next year. And it could be right if they don't get the right quarterback. I'm totally in on them needing a transfer quarterback. If you don't know what I'm talking about, yesterday's podcast, I did a live stream for about an hour. We talked about the quarterback for the first 20 minutes probably. It is a really big topic for a good reason. FSU needs to hit a portal quarterback top end. Everybody's trying to do the same thing down there. Somebody's going to miss, probably more than won't. So that's something to think about. But it is part of it. I'll get to some more questions here in just one moment. Before I do, I want to go ahead and remind everybody, LinkedIn College, this is probably the most important one for us. They do all the recruiting stuff around the network. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to have as many top-tier candidates as possible to interview. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. If you are doing anything that is in conjunction with the Christmas holiday season, if you're trying to get part-time help or something, LinkedIn would be a great way to do it. And if you're trying to get a jump on 2024, get that out there now. It's an easy app to use, whether you go on a laptop, your phone, whatever. There are over 1 billion people in some way, shape, or form that are connected with LinkedIn. It's incredible. I've used it for years, and I think you should too as well. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right. Now, let's talk a little bit more about this class. Florida State, really good balance. And the DB class, to reiterate what I opened the show with, top notch. It's not really debatable to be even remotely kidding. I mean, it's insane. That being the case, Florida State has other areas that I think are underrated and could also make an impact next year. So I want to give you an example. Wide receiver. I already talked about BJ Gibson a little bit ago, but let me reiterate. Plays at I think it's Wilcox County in Georgia. Not many people talk about him. Could play DB, could play receiver, could probably play running back if he wanted to. Nobody even talks about him, and he's good enough to play at an elite level at Power 5. And Florida State has him in a top 5 class. In other years, he might have been one of the top 5 players in the Florida State class. This is just a deep, ridiculously good recruiting class. This is still a young man that I guarantee you, just based on where he's from, how early Mike Norvell and his staff took him, that's a good sign. They're recruiting him as a receiver. Well, Wayne McCoy, Miami Central, highly coveted. Miami really wanted him. Big time player, has the ability to play DB, receiver, and he's a kid that just makes the play. I've seen him play live multiple times, 7-on-7, camp, and in pads. He is a kid that is very competitive. Kind of sticks to himself on the sideline and everything else. But when the light goes on, well, Wayne McCoy goes after the football like few others do. And he's got separation speed. I've even seen him catch a one-handed bomb before. They're still not done. If you want to look at Florida State's class, and I guess I could just kind of run through it a little bit, to be honest with you, there's a couple I'm going to save for last because I know them, and I just kind of, I don't know. I have a leaning towards players that I get to know. I guess that's just part of human nature, to be honest with you. But a kid that nobody else talks about because he's not from the South and committed to Florida State, I don't know if that's fair, but it's just true. Florida State has a commitment from Elijah Moore at Good Counsel up in the D.C. area. It's a really, really good private school. And that league's tough. Gonzaga, DeMatha, etc. All those schools beat up on each other. He's going to be their big-bodied boundary receiver, 6'5", 6'4", 6'5", whatever. And he can run pretty dang good. When you put him in Florida State's strength and conditioning program, which is obviously very good, the upside for a kid like Elijah, it's up to him. So that's three guys that I'm super high on at receiver, and they're not talked about that much. That's why this class is top 5. When you can do those kinds of things, and it's different. And Camden Fryer, as I mentioned earlier, he's my best player that nobody talks about on offense at all. Like, he gets no pub, even though he's from Florida, which is bizarre. I don't really consider him a receiver, though. I consider him an offensive weapon. I think he'll get reverses, screens. He will be used on special teams. If you wanted to play him at safety, you could. He's that guy. He's a football player, but he's technically a receiver for the record. I'm just higher on Fryer than just about anybody I know, but that collection is really, really good. Now, the other question that I get a lot, best defensive player, I mentioned this yesterday. I just want to say this, and I'll hit some more questions. Jaden Parrish, he is an absolute thumper. He plays at Atlantic down in South Florida. He grew up a Miami fan, but he's going to play for the Noles. Man, can that kid hit. Super instinctive. I'm telling you, if you want to check out some film, go check Jaden Parrish. He is a freaking dude. I think he will play some next year for the Florida State Seminoles. So where are we here? Let me see what I have. We got so many questions now, it's not even funny. I asked too much. What we got? Do you think our offense can be a deep ball threat like Washington is right now? It depends on the quarterback. That's a great question. Isaac Monte. If you think about how good the quarterback was at Washington this year, Penix, he's from Tampa Tech, by the way. That's part of it. He wasn't that guy right off the bat in college. Took him a couple of years, but that system, he's played in it a long time. I don't think you're going to see that too often anywhere. If you look at, it's ironic, Oregon runs a really short conservative passing game and just gets the ball in their hands, their playmakers. Washington's like, the heck with this. Away we go, up over the top. They're completely different. There's different ways to get it done. Norvell's system's a little of both. He's very, very complex with it, and it's obviously successful. But it comes down to how successful your quarterback is at throwing those. Look at it this way. Jalen Milroe at Alabama, I've seen him play live. He's just not that accurate. Outside of the scripted plays at the beginning of the game, he does not throw outs and stuff that accurately on a consistent basis in the middle of the game, like drive to drive, just from the outset. But for whatever reason, he throws the ball down the field. Why is that? I have no idea. Comfort, I guess, but it is weird to me. You can throw 50 yards down the field more successfully than 20. I don't get that. All right. Seems like we only do short routes. We throw some bombs, I do believe. The bombs that go to Keon and some of these other guys, it's pretty hard to deny those, but teams are playing more cover 2 and whatnot, trying to make Florida State go down the field, especially after they had some injuries. And I get it. Florida State is all the way back. I disagree with that. Let me take that on. This is from Jonathan McIntosh. He says 3 wins, 5 wins, 10 wins, 13 wins. Norvell's the real deal. Florida State is all the way back. All the way back to me means you can lose like 10 guys in the NFL and still be top 5 next year. Florida State's going to lose some games next year. They're not going to be a title contender barring just an unbelievable portal haul. They're losing too much, too many seniors. They're a year away, I think, in 25 to start that. There's going to be an in-between season. I think it's next year. But the portal could prove me wrong on that. A lot of people didn't think they'd be at that point this season, but they hit the home run in the portal. And at the end, they got Keon on top of it. I mean, that's the icing on the cake. So we'll see. R.A. Nixon, can Fuller win some type of award this year? I mean, there's different kinds of assistant coaching awards and all that, but I don't keep up with all this kind of stuff. Some of these awards get announced around this time, and I don't pay attention to it that much. But Fuller's had his best year, and I think part of that is just the mix. The coaching staff has done a great job together. And while individual awards are important, they certainly are, and I'm sure he loves it. Probably gets a bonus for winning any of them. I think this is more of a team effort by the coaching staff in conjunction with the players they brought in, portal, high school, developed, the whole nine. They just seem to be in sync. Again, I think it was 180, 181, something like that Louisville had in total offense. They're horrible. And it wasn't like a situation where Florida State wasn't a good defense. They knew what they were coming into. They prepared hard. Florida State just kicked their teeth in. So Fuller and his staff did a tremendous job, especially at the end of the season. The battle's end is the only way to fix these issues. It's simple. $20 a month is our chance to put our money where our mouths are. The King says that. That's pretty good. I'm going to read that again. The battle's end is the only way to fix these issues. $20 a month is our chance to put our money where our mouths are. Well said. Go Moles. Oh, Mike, what's up, man? How you doing? Mike always comments on all my pods. Good to see you, brother. Hope all is well. All right. I think we'll be aggressive in the portal again to plug some holes, but next year and after, our high school recruits should be carrying us. That's a great point. This is Jonathan McIntosh, and what his point is pretty simple. If Florida State can get to a point where they're just picking some guys out of the portal instead of, I hate using this word, but at least this year they kind of did. If you look at the starters, how many of them are transfers? Probably 60%. They need to get to the point where it's 20. This class and the next one, the 25 class, once they're both physically on campus, all of them, a year and a half from now, summer of 2025, when everybody's enrolled from the 25 class, Florida State should be in a situation where they've got enough depth that they're only adding key pieces like a kid turns pro. Okay, that happens. You lose a kid a year early. It is what it is. A kid has an injury and he's good, but you're not sure if he's going to play that next fall. He had an injury in spring. So you take a guy at that same spot, pick whichever one you want to add depth. Those kinds of things. It's part of it. Again, football is brutal. It is barbaric. That's the way it is. It's always been physical. That ain't going to change. But they need to get to a point where high school is far more important. Are there any D-tackle recruits we are in the running for? The kid from North Carolina, his name escapes me right now. I need to find out. That's not my turf, but Florida State's in the running for him. And so's a bunch of other schools. Miami, a bunch of other schools are after a big kid. I don't know if they're going to be able to flip Artavius Jones, but they've been trying. He's committed to Miami. He's from Blountstown. It's only 45 minutes from Tallahassee. He's a dude, 310 pounds. He's going to need a year. Technically, he's not ready, but you cannot teach Artavius Jones' frame. There could be somebody else because the way this works, let's be honest, they're probably trying to flip somebody that's committed to school X and fill in the blank that's not public. That's the nature of the beast, especially this late in the game. They're not going to let anything out. So, yes, there are multiple guys. Was not here. What's the consensus on Jeremiah Smith coming to Florida State? Well, I might as well just kind of go through this again real quick. Jeremiah, this from a couple of days ago, I had talked to somebody. We both agree. Florida State, Ohio State, all these other schools, they're all going to have to wait until signing day, which is the 20th. That's 15 days from now. Number 2 point, Ohio State and Florida State, me and another person agree, are the top two. Miami is the fluid, always around, recruiting him hard as heck. They just had an in-home with him, blah, blah, blah. And he'll probably go visit there again. I do believe he's visiting Florida State again as well. All in on this, I have no idea until signing day, like most of you. I wish I had more specific, but I'm not sure Jeremiah does because Ohio State just lost their quarterback. He doesn't know for sure who it's going to be, although I'm sure Ohio State's telling him, oh, everything's great. I mean, what else are they going to tell him? Everything sucks. Don't come here. I get it. So until some portal stuff happens, there's probably too many things being mixed in to have a definitive answer. But right now, Florida State is certainly in the mix. I do believe that Norvell was down to see him today. I forget the date. So they're definitely involved with Jeremiah Smith. Angelo Smith. Fryer is going to be our secret weapon. 100%. I'm telling you, folks, Camden Fryer is really freaking good. Sometimes it's kind of hard to define because I get to see it up close. His effort's just different. Like even when he's going against somebody that has no business being in front of him, he plays just as hard. Setting that example is not a normal thing for a high school kid. So it is what it is. D.D. Holmes is going to be the beast out of the DMV. He's a defensive lineman. I'm going to get to some of the defensive guys here in a minute, and he's right. Angelo's right. Holmes is, I don't know why he's underrated. That's a pretty interesting point because DC is one of the highest per capita NFL spots there is. It's an easy area to get to. Obviously, got multiple airports. Why he's not ranked higher, I'm really not sure. It's kind of interesting. Penix wanted to be a Knoll, but Jimbo, yeah, I'd heard that. Here's an interesting story about this. Angelo says Penix wanted to come to Florida State, but Jimbo Fisher doesn't like left-handed quarterbacks. True. The guy that's at Tennessee now, he had committed to Tennessee. Then the Tennessee coach changed. He didn't like lefties, so Penix went to Indiana, then followed the coach to Washington. He's had a weird ride. All right. Dylan Gabriel from Oklahoma in portal 1 year. Kid may be good for us. I'm here in Oregon on Gabriel. I can imagine their NIL is rather good with Phil Knight. Penix was after. I'd love to blame Jimbo, though. I can't remember. He was recruiting. The recruitment started early, even if Jimbo wasn't the reason. We need a big dual threat quarterback, preferably Ward. KJ Jefferson would be really unique in this system. I also heard, forget where it was. I want to say, which one was it? One of the podcasts I listened to today mentioned that Florida State was looking at DJ Uiagalelei. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't really like that fit, but that's something that I heard. Yeah, I'm sure Jimbo was involved in his recruitment. That's one thing about Jimbo. He got involved in recruiting early. He loved it. I guarantee in the near future, Norvell going to bring us multiple natties. I guarantee unless the NFL takes Norvell. You know what? I don't think Norvell wants the opportunity in the NFL like some other guys because of the system he runs and whatnot. I think it's a little more suited to the collegiate level. It's a good point. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. That's a really interesting thing to say, though. Could he be the guy that leads Florida State to a top-end level, and then they just go and somebody comes in and offers him $100 million or something? I mean, it's possible. I mean, I get it if he left for that, but Florida State's an easier gig than a lot of NFL jobs because if you're at Florida State, and for people that went to school there or follow this program, FSU is in the panhandle. It's a lot slower pace. A lot people that go to Florida State to be the head coach probably aren't NFL guys by and large. They're just not. I don't think he'll go to the NFL. That's just my opinion. What are the chances of going after that D tackle from A&M? Let me be very clear. And I already know what he's talking about. Walter Nolan. I've seen Walter play. He is freaky, 300 plus pounds and moves like a kid that's 240. There isn't a school that's not going to contact Walter Nolan. I have no idea where he's going. If I had to guess, it would be Tennessee because that's where he's from originally. But my guess, if he doesn't turn around and go back to A&M, which they're still trying to convince him to do, it's going to be Tennessee, Bama, or Georgia. Tennessee's where he's from. Bama and Georgia recruited the crap out of him too. So that would be my guess. Florida State now, I think, has a chance at some of those recruits, but I don't know any specifics. I'm just guessing. Everything is good, brother. Hope everything is good on your end. Thank you very much, sir. Let's see. I truly believe Norvell is going to use what happened as motivation, and he will show it in the portal and recruiting and take it to the field. I don't doubt that at all, Mike. Norvell seems to have an extra gear of energy that not many people have. He's kind of hard to define, to be really honest with you. That's a good thing. Let's see here. Fryer is like a Swiss Army knife. He has multiple skill sets. Biggie Mason, you are correct. I believe you about Fryer. He actually has the pedigree, but why isn't he ranked higher? I have no idea. He was on the 7-on circuit. He competed at different events. He plays at Lake City, Columbia. Yeah, it's in the Panhandle, but it's a well-known program. I mean, he's not in Central or South Florida. That matters a little bit, but I don't know. I'm really not sure. I also heard someone predicted the young man from UCLA to come to Tallahassee, Dante Moore. Could be. I don't think he's the greatest fit in Norvell's scheme because Dante is not a pro or a run pass guy. He is a pocket guy, but he's so accurate. You could find a way to make it work pretty good. He is really accurate. Great kid too. Did Travis Etienne leave for? He's going to Georgia. For anybody that doesn't know, Etienne is transferring to Georgia. Worst kept secret there is. That is all NIL and backdoor bull. You know what? Straight up. What up? Let's see how you feel about Clemson, Andrew Makuba. If he's in the portal, I didn't know. I mean, he's really good. Florida State would do good to get him if that's what you're referring. I have no idea. I check the portal stuff every few hours, but I miss a ton of stuff. We might get, after this outcome, go to the Big Ten or SEC to have a better chance. Mike doesn't get to make those decisions. Let me be clear about something in general. Mr. Wilmer brings up a pretty good point. Whenever you're in a scenario where somebody says the coach needs to get them out of the league, it's not the coach's decision. Even somebody as powerful as Bowden was, not his decision. It's administration, board of trustees. And the grant of rights deal with the ACC is horrific, and it is through the year 2036. Look it up. Articles galore. It is awful. What do you mean? So what's this all about? I'm not sure what you're referring to. Oh, wow. Wow. If that's the case, I don't know why. He played a lot for Clemson. That's wild. Makuba in the portal. If that's the case, look out. College football invitational. Not to start a rumor, but Bolden follows only Auburn on Instagram, not FSU anymore. I don't put much into that. Kids do all kinds of things on social media just to get followers. I heard a take from you that you agreed with the decision of Bama and Texas making the play where FSU's is true, and if so, please explain your logic. Just curious. Yeah, I think you should have your quarterback. That's my opinion, and I'm not changing that. I don't care which school it is. After you throw for 55 yards in the championship game, I don't. But I also don't think that's exactly why they picked those schools. I still think it's eyeballs, and I still think it's because of, to a degree, quarterback. But more than anything else, the main reason is they want quarterbacks that are healthy to drive ratings. It is proven statistically, games that are higher scoring, more offensive driven, drive ratings. If you do not have a quarterback is one thing. Even if, let's say, Jordan Travis was banged up right now, hypothetically, he had a high ankle sprain. They're annoying and take forever. It would have hurt Florida State's chances, legitimately. And that's just the way it is. But nonetheless, I have no idea. They were playing Iowa, who has a great defense, but they knew they didn't have to score. That's not a relevant point. The point is, do you have your starting quarterback? It's a checkbox. It's that simple. And it is flat out in the language for the committee. We can argue about it all day. I think that they made the right choice on that. Just don't agree on the point on why they did. I don't believe all the things they're saying, but that's another story. All right. It doesn't make any difference. You're playing Iowa. You can beat them with a high school offense. Iowa's offense is so bad it's not even definable. They're just anemic. They had against Penn State earlier this year one of the worst stats of all time. They had fewer than 35 offensive plays. You heard that correctly. Go look it up. It's ridiculous. Michigan knew they didn't have to do diddly on offense. It took zero risk. It is what it is. While I'm thinking of it, I want to go over some of Florida State's defensive players in this class real quick before I wrap it up, because Florida State played unbelievable against Louisville. I think we can all agree on that. D.D. Holmes, the defensive lineman, somebody brought him up a little bit ago. I want to mention him. He plays at Gonzaga. It's one of the other schools that goes against good counsel. The young man is going to here play receiver. DD is 6'5", 260. He could be a strong side edge, but I think he'll end up playing inside as a 3-tech at least part of the time. Maybe they'll do some 3-man line stuff. He could play strong side end in that. Whatever. Heck of a football player. Much like some of the other guys in this class, he's not rated higher than he is. Whatever. 250, 260. He can play. I really, really like him. I'm going to push my guy, Jaden Parrish, again. I think he's as good a defensive player as they have in this class. And I mean that literally. Like, he's KJ Bolden kind of impact guy. If he figures out the scheme, linebacker's hard, though. Thumper, good in man coverage, good in hook curl zone, just finds the football. Zero concern for who's in front of him. He's going to hit it. I'm telling y'all right now, Jaden Parrish is going to come to Florida State, and he's going to play some football. Jamari Flagg. Saw him play as a junior. Plays for Booker T down in Miami. Program that Ice Harris has is legit, and he's a kid that gets after it. 300-pounder. Can't have enough of those guys. He takes it pretty serious, and he's not a guy you want to tick off either. He can get after it. Florida State did well. Hickman Collins, the kid out of South Carolina, small school. This is old school Bobby Bowden recruiting. Linebacker, downhill, thumper, speed, the whole 9 yards. I love his ability, but he's kind of like Camden Fryer, ironically. When you play at some of these schools that aren't close to a metro area, not as many eyeballs. It's just fact. When I go to the Miami or Fort Lauderdale area, any game I go to, there are 3 or 4 other guys there. They're in my industry. If I go to see Hickman play, there might be one. Maybe. It's just location. That's part of these rankings. That's just the way it goes. I'm going to do something on the FSU O linemen separately pretty soon. I don't really want to get into them very much right now. And I'm going to talk about Cam Davis and the running backs and some of that stuff a little bit later too. I'll probably do that either tomorrow or later. I'm going up to Alabama a little bit later tonight. I'm going to be covering some of the state championships there and checking some of that out. But it's interesting. I don't know. It's interesting, but let's answer a few more questions and I'll wrap it up here. These kids earn the right to make the playoffs. It's unconscionable to make that away from them, blah, blah, blah. They just make you mention conference championships, they matter and all that. Again, I just disagree. It's a subjective term, but I stand by it. What if one of the quarterbacks of the top 4 got injured during bowl practice? Does that team get the boot? After you're in, to my knowledge. That's actually a really good question. Mickey Mason asked that. Boy, that would be wild. It can happen. I mean, think about how many times there's a non-contact injury. Eventually, it's going to happen. Like a kid's just running a drill and he breaks his ankle. He just plants wrong. It's going to happen. Hell, that's a heck of a question. That might be the question of the day right there from Mickey Mason. But I don't know if there's any bylaw about it. I've never heard of that before. But that's a great point. Lake middle defection. Mr. Wilmer, look for a lot of late middle defections. I'm not sure what you mean by defections. Are you talking about deflections? This game will never be the same again, period. Christopher Counts. I'm not sure what you mean. If you're talking about portal, the committee, or what? The reason this has never happened before because it's flat out wrong. Well, okay. The people saying this all are a little biased, and that's why I don't worry about it too much. See a lot of last-minute defections. Oh, well, yeah. As far as it goes with regards to recruiting, it's part of recruiting in general. I told somebody the other day, they asked me on a different podcast that they had me on. I said, you should expect at least 1, but up to 3 defections from a recruiting class, no matter who you are, Georgia or anybody, in the last month to 2 months. Just nature of it. I mean, it happens to Kirby Smart of Georgia, and they've won 2 titles. There's nothing against Florida State if it happens or it doesn't. I think they've done a pretty good job of keeping this pretty tidy. Somebody can leave if they get somebody else and they get ticked about a room being crowded at a position or something, whatever. But even so, even a guy they want, like KJ Bolden, obviously they want, he could defect. It's possible. Absolutely. ACC affiliation. I don't know if that has a ton to do with it, but it probably did not help. Caden Atkins, Eva High School, Alabama lost like week. Oh, the kid from Elba? Leroy Caden. Elba has the running back Henderson that everybody's recruiting in the class of 25, and they lost that game. Maybe that's the kid that did it in for them. Let's see. Don't worry about not having your glasses, man. I know what it's like. All right. One more thing before I get out of here. I'm going to work on some more of the offensive stuff, but I have a question for everybody that's in the chat right now. I'm going to break down all the positions after signing day, obviously, because you want the official tally. But what position do people have the most interest in for me to break down? Is it running back? Like, I know Cam Davis well. Known him since he was a freshman in high school. He was a dude even then. What position are you interested in and why? If you want to post something in the chat, fire away. I'm interested. Here's somebody just asked. Jeffrey Bell, what's the word on KJ? Auburn is definitely in it. He had either he was there or they went up to visit him in home. I forget which, but it's a recruiting race for him. I think that'll go down to signing day if I had to guess. And to reiterate for anybody that might have missed it, Jeremiah Smith, that's going to be signing day. I'll be shocked if it's not. You'll have something at the school. There are several other kids like Zaquan Patterson, who Florida State, I'm sure, is still trying to flip from Miami too. I'm sure they're still trying to get Josiah Trader, another kid from Chaminade. It's all part of it. So a lot of kids still going to be deciding a little later. Linebacker, well, I would love to break down some more Jaden Parrish. Linebacker, I'll put that down. Linebacker it is for one. Linebackers for Mr. Wilmer as well. Any word on Riley Leonard? Yeah, it's going to be Notre Dame. They're not going to get him. He's going to Notre Dame. So, let's see. I don't know who this idiot is, but goodbye. Last point, and I'll wrap it up here. And thanks for everybody. And please hit that like button, notification bell, and share this. I'm going to do a lot more live podcasts moving forward because we're going into recruiting season, and this is my deal. It's easier just to have you on here, all these people, and just ask questions. This is my bag. No question about it. Recruits know they will never play for a natty at your joke team. I don't know who this idiot is, but he's about to get voted. So the bottom line is this. Recruiting season never stops, but right now, think about something. Portal just opened. Signing day is the 20th. The Noles have a bowl game to prepare for. You got guys you're trying to solidify on your roster, not to leave, trying to pull from the portal, finish up KJ Bolden, all this. This is the busiest week of the entire 52-week calendar, the first week of December. Number one, it's insane. Coaches ought to get a bonus just for going through this. Everything crosses. Oh, by the way, people are trying to pull coaches from your staff because if you're Mike Norvell, you just went undefeated. I guarantee you, there are coaches getting phone calls. Hey, would you like to come here and at least take an interview? And I get it. Happens to all the teams that are successful in college football. Florida State shall not be any different. So anything else? Let's see. O-line, yeah. They've got to have more success up front at O-line recruit. I'm going to do a little more. I want to see if Florida State can hit the portal and get one guy at least on the. That's so hard. Get an O-line guy. Just want to bring that up. But I'm going to wrap it up here. Everybody be safe. Thank you very much. If you have any questions or anything, get them in. I'm going to do more of these, but I'm going to be on the road the next week. I'll be doing them from hotels, but nonetheless, I'm going to be on the road having fun, and we're going to check it out. So we'll go through that. Luke Cromwell come in and start day one. No, he is not going to be a starter day one. He's not ready for that. Oof. Everybody should go after Cam Ward. Corey Knight asked 100%. Got to go after Cam Ward. So anyway, that'll do it for the show. Everybody be good. I appreciate y'all. Thank you very much. And I will talk to you soon.